Right. Like I was doing the crocheting and embroidery and some of the other like fabric crafts that she was doing and then about control. So then I got her into felting and so it was kind of a matter of like
exploring some different things and getting her feet back.
So like that's one of like sort of the tenets of like working in the library, provide people access to resources that they don't have necessarily commit to themselves. And so, you know, like she wasn't willing to commit to embroidery but like when she got into felting in particular, like I provide a lot of the stuff I would provide most if not all of the supplies. And I got her the stuff to get started on it. And then like when she was willing to, when she decided that she went off of that.
So you basically offering an introduction and facilitating, you know, the initial process to get these off in here.
I have one mom who really took to embroidery. She's like, I will not try crochet because she's seeing like all the stuff that we're doing with crochet. Like I refuse to do all of that for you. You will have to at least try it.
Right.
I don't want it, but I want you to make X, Y, and Z. I'm like, no ma'am, I'm doing things right now. Like you will have to learn how to do this. So
And that's kind of, it's very similar in with the grant writing because, you know, people just want people to do it for you. Yeah.
that is something that I run into.
Oh, man.
Even where I'm working right now, where it's like, you know, like one of the services that we offer is you're talking about your resume. And I'm like, if you come in with a resume, I will help you with it. But some other people will actually do the resume for you. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that for you. One, I don't have the time.
Right.
And two, like when you leave this area, you are not like gonna be able to get that somewhere else without paying for it. Like if you want to pay someone to do your resume, I'm sure they will.
Right.
But like otherwise, you need to learn how to do this on your own. So like I was providing with all of the necessary resources and tools to get them started.
Get started.
And then I'm like, come back if you need more help. I'm willing to help you, but I'm not willing to do it.
You know, that's where I've been having some ethical dilemmas. Kenneth has really been kind of getting into my, what is it, McGill, whatever, my gills, regarding some of the ethics related to writing, like, because writing grants for people, you know what I mean? Like, because it's so labor intensive of a process to like really get in their brain and understand their program, but it's all sort of a crapshoot. And you know, I can't guarantee that we go through all that work that you're going to get a grant. You know, however, like I recognize that it's like valuable energy. You know what I'm saying? And trying to figure out how to price for that.
But I don't see that as granted. I don't necessarily, you don't get paid to do it, but I don't see that any different as me helping you with a resume. It doesn't mean that you're going
Hey, hey, how are you?
I should have known she was here early.
First, you know.
She's always here early.
I literally came here after I got lost. I came here directly from Bay.
Nice. You got lost?
It's like my phone was like, didn't tell me, and then I was like, okay, let's go down there, and it's like, just kidding, turn around. And I'm like,
Lord.
Yeah, it's tricky, you know what I mean? Because I certainly want to like give people all the advice in the world, but I also recognize that typically yeah, and if you're not valuing your time, they won't, you know, in some different ways. you know, and at the same time, you know, what I've recognized is like, you also can't price it too high. Because sometimes you're just taking money from people because they expect you to solve their problems for them, and you're like, I can't solve your problems for you, I can help you, and so. It's this really sort of like a sweet spot of helping people help themselves, yeah, take a seat, you know, helping people help themselves, you know.
That's the struggle, like, one of my coaches is having, you know, you need to not do it for them, you need to learn how to do it. So literally, I mean, there's a lot of trial and error that goes into this entire process, and like, no one showed me, like, I mean, like, someone sat like down with me, like, the basic information on how to like write a resume, but you know, it was someone, my husband got me down, was like, your resume shit, and I'm like, first of all, but then like, but then like, she gave me information, but then like, she didn't give me the whole like picture, like, oh, by the way, every time you apply for a job, you're gonna have to like redo your resume.
Right,
I didn't learn that until literally like a couple years ago, I was like,
Oh, really?
this explains so much why I'm not getting like interviews.
Yeah, like you have, yeah, it's like a thing, yeah.
But like, I'm not the only person who knows, like, I always run through to coming in, and they're like, I don't know, I had to like, trying to get my resume, and I was like, I feel like that's information that became available at some point, but then it wasn't disseminated out to the general public.
Right.
And so now that I work in an office where all we do is talk about resumes, like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, no, this is good information, now I know, but.
Right.
Well, that's something also, I think, you know, whether you're applying for grants or you're applying for jobs, you know, if we're being empathetic to the fact that they're probably getting more applications than they've ever received in history, you know, so they are also using technologies and like the applicant tracking softwares in order to filter people out.
Yeah, that's.
I tell them.
You know what I'm
need to
saying?
Get past the box.
Yeah,
literally what I'm doing.
yeah, you really have to get past it, it's so hard.
It is
It
hard.
used to be much more like you felt like you had an interaction, but it's not.
Well, you know, but that's why I think that, and you have to be careful with this, but I think the personalization can also come in the form of online and offline. And so what I'm seeing now is like people submitting like, you know, the regular application or whatever, but then following up with like a personalized handwritten note or
Yeah.
something.
You do
to-
have to- No, I mean, but that's
But
what
to
you
be,
do.
but
That's
to be
what you
fair,
have
I
to do.
applied for
Like all
government
things, especially
jobs,
the
so they don't care.
Yeah.
What was it, in the federal world, no, exactly what they want,
Facts,
Yeah.
facts.
but like, no, that makes sense.
Hard.
You're
It's like-
in.
Like you have someone come to your show and they're of any importance, you wanna, and like, you're like thankful they come, you write them a card and thank them for coming, and that will go a million miles. I know people who did it, and like their careers are.
I mean, to be fair, like, for me, like, art, like, for me, art is like, it's not personal, it's not, I do it every day. It's sometimes
that's what I
like, the selling element of it is
Yeah.
super critical. Like, at this point, I'm like, oh, I gotta sell some stuff, because I have so much.
Right, yeah.
Like, when Caroline was like, hey, you're selling, like, yes, I have all the stuff, what do you want?
Yeah,
What do you want?
I totally have, you're on my list, to get together and have a meeting with, because I have started the process of doing some programming, getting some programming going possibly at Patriotic Hall, the apartment.
Oh, okay.
So, you're one of my top people to pull in, if you're interested. I, don't know exactly what it'll look like, but either way, just like having your voice in and seeing if there's a way that could work for you. Just figure out what it will look like. But, in terms of team programming,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
I like teams, they're fun.
Yeah, the parking lot is stoked on it, and so am I, and, what I'm here working on is like some money to pay. So.
Looks like we
I
have
was gonna
one
ask
more.
that.
I'm very excited. We have a small, intimate class today. I think it's gonna be better. Could be a lot of pressure on you guys.
It was always good here last time. Oh, good. Well, no, because I have my meeting with Park and Rec today about doing team programming at Patriotic Hall.
Nice. So is that for personal stuff or how? Right.
Yeah, so, oh my God.
What up, what up, what up? How are you? Welcome, welcome.
Hi. Nice to see you. Oh, it's fine. I can wait.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I know some of these people. Hi. Hi.
Yeah. That makes it easy, right?
I didn't introduce myself. I'm Kate.
Okay, I can start that.
And I'm on the PAC. So
So PAC is.
the Public Art Advisory.
With the city.
With
Well,
the
no,
city.
and you're interested in doing that grant.
Yeah.
It's, that's great.
Yeah.
'Cause
We're
if we could-
working really hard at like trying to integrate arts programming into like a regular part of what the city does for our, our community members, and so it's
It's candy, Lauren.
we've had a grant this past.
Oh, that's
year.
pie, that's candy.
Executing it, but
My bad.
I'm on staff.
Yeah, I have.
But, moving on from that, what I really want to do is like, much more grassroots related than this other project. So the hope is to, pull on a lot of connections we've made and including this one.
So even like the individual artists and getting exhibitions, I mean, just going over the grant process. And that they're looking for, so time with the gallery.
Grab a chair.
Exhibition.
Go for it.
You know, having a total package and.
Yeah.
then how-
Don't take it home.
Hey, it's not green as having standards, you have standards for what you like. I dig it.
Yeah,
Or,
and actually, this is this is a theme, and it's a way of sticking my thinking in and doing a small program that I hope to actually expand into a much, much larger program. So I have a much bigger plan.
Yes, and I
But the idea is to start really small and manageable amongst the people who we've been working with.
took her by
Cause
and then
this
it comes
whole
small,
art-
keep that like the plastic.
Or you're gonna be dissing. What's going on, you? Welcome.
For branded and. President.
So they're just like,
Yeah, then with-
All right, I think I trust you.
Stage.
Name tag, please.
Oh, man.
That one it is, man, have a seat.
yeah, I wanna build it out a lot like, basically wanna do a really nice business structure so that it's fundable in different ways.
For a pack.
Yeah, it's a collaboration with PAC and Park and Rec.
Cause you're jumping the gun, cause we're getting it off, but this is good to hear.
She's talking about.
That's good, I just want everyone else to hear.
Well, it's a small enough group
Yeah.
where.
I think Anna's gonna do this too.
Is she really?
She did say it. She texted this morning, asked if I was coming and said, oh, I'm too. So,
Because, and so Kenneth and I, and we don't grab your chair. We sort of recognize that 2 hours is a short amount of time. And so you grab your chair.
yeah, excuse my.
Chairs,
Yeah.
And so if you weren't able to make it to our, January, and this is me, if you weren't able to make it to our January 15th workshop, that was also about 2 hours, and time just flew by. And so I think with this workshop, we'd like to be, just a lot more intentional regarding using the time, the the people that are here to, work on our individual projects, right? To spend some time learning how, you can leverage both Kenneth and mine's subject matter expertise, but, really using this as a working session opportunity. And so, my hope is that we can spend like the first couple of minutes just introducing ourselves. I think we actually scheduled about 30 minutes, like get to know you, understanding. What's up, Malika?
Hey.
Grab a chair. You're actually, well, there you go. And then quick, get yourself a name tag, please. So why don't we go around the room really quickly and let's say, next like 90 seconds to 2 minutes to introduce ourselves, who we are, the grant that we brought today that we would like to take a look at, or that we'd like to discuss, and a little bit about you or the program or service that you're interested in getting some of that grant funding.
Say it again. So
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So who we are, the grant that we are interested in applying for, what you or your organization does, and then, well, yeah, and then we're gonna, I think, some of the things that we would like to discuss later are what some of your common interests are, whether there might be some overlap for us to collaborate or apply for grants. So who you are, the grant that you're applying for, and the organization that you represent, and the programs and services that you offer. Does that make sense? All right, who wants to get started?
I can start. I am Pat. I'm a mentee with the PAT. And just like getting crafting, for crafting out into the community. I don't have a particular grant that I'm interested in right now. I just kind of want to know about the grant right now.
You said you say that the last part?
I don't have a particular grant in mind.
Okay.
And I just kind of want to know a little bit more about the grant writing process.
Cool.
I am Kate Short, I'm with the Public Grant Advisory Committee, and I'm vice chair, but I've also been, project lead for City of Twentynine, which has been $100,000 grant for that this past year. And so I'm here because, well, we wanted all our mentees to be here, but also, I'm scheming on other projects that we can do and hoping to apply for the, creative youth development, grant, or what we have in fact grant through the Public Grant Council. Both of them kind of do what I'd like to do, which is I kind of basically have the Parks and Rec to do an after school team program at the call. So that space goes unused quite often, and there's a bus that goes from the high school every day directly there after school, which is super exciting, which is all work very well, and it's a huge need in our community to give out for students. So I want to get people who are amazing artists who may be interested in teaching and
nudge.
you were on my list too. Although, basically I had to have the meeting of Park and Rec today to get the thumbs up, and so now I've got the thumbs up, so anyone who's interested, I'm gonna have a meeting sometime soon. So we can talk about what that structure would look like and how to do really meaningful outreach in our community, make sure it's really fulfilling needs.
I know that I leave hold, that's my artist name. I was just gonna get more information. So I, just like that, I'm trying to figure out, a way to do the individual in my craft as well. I had a handful of like different mediums I actually work on. And so I'm just hoping to get more information out tonight, honestly, and see what grant that's like specialized in it.
Okay, my name is Laura Mulford. I have no idea about grants or no, nor am I in an organization up here in December. I'm a multimedia chicken artist, so I'm just seeing, I have no particular skills at all, but that usually comes in handy.
She has every skill.
I was
I'm
gonna
just
say,
gonna
I
say
think
she has
it's
every
not,
skill,
no
and they
particular.
always come in handy.
Right, they come in handy. Okay.
So, my name is Wendy Hunt, and, there are two organizations. One is my own, Funmelli Creative, and I just realized I cut my teeth doing brand and web development and print products and all of that stuff, but in the course of refining what I wanted, moving out here and letting go of a lot of expectations, I realized that the common thread is not whether it's print or web or brand or business or human being, that the connecting point for me is creativity. And that is what I bring to the table, and what I'm doing right now, I'm working with Gretchen over at the Creative Center. She's made us crayon colors, so I'm in the gold studio. She gave me gold instead of yellow, which I appreciate. So I'm in the gold studio, and I'm teaching music, and I'm teaching, I can tell you more about my philosophy, but I'm teaching music, and I'm teaching one time a month copper projects. So we're taking, dead soft copper and making animals. Right now, we're going through progression. So what I'm looking for in a grant is some way, because as I've listened to Gretchen talk, she has something that she's trying to follow, something Jane put in place, and that is that no child should be without art. And so she's been applying to the PAC every year, I think, or at least recently, to get scholarship funds, but she's putting in about 3 times as much as she's getting from you guys in scholarships. I taught for 3
She's
months.
putting out more than she's getting in.
She's offering scholarships to people who can't afford it. And I want to do the same thing. I taught with Groundwork Arts for 3 weeks at Desert Oasis Elementary. It was too much for me. I was having to part all my supplies between classes, and it was almost 500 students a month that all those kids, it was lovely. I mean, they wanted the art experience, and it wasn't there. And you've got teachers who want to be there, and some who are off in art, and that, anyway, so my heart's in it for bringing something, and I felt like where there was a real need, and I just don't know how to finance it, is in working with young people, but not in a way that I get totally strapped for energy, which is what was happening at Desert Oasis. Yeah. I had no time, and it just doesn't compensate enough to make up for the amount of time that. Anyway, so
We
there's.
should join in our talks too. But do you know these grants? The California Arts Council grants?
I don't know a lot about it. I just
Yeah.
know that what I would love to do, because Gretchen's, like, she's already established. She has, and I'm here because I thought I was just learning more about grants, but specifically, if I'm getting specific, it's about art education, so that Gretchen hasn't created a nonprofit over there, but she's been speculating about it. Like, would that be helpful so that she could turn around and offer more? She is for profit, and that's important to her to be paid. So she wasn't sure she needed to run a dual organization nonprofit. Anyway, that's her organization, but I feel like what I'm doing over there dovetails. Right now, I'm just starting to build what I'm doing so that it includes education at different sorts.
So, I mean, thank you for sharing.
Anyway, that's a lot.
No, that was amazing. That was fantastic. And Kenneth and I will introduce ourselves here in a bit. And, I don't know if you've got any feedback, but what I'm broadly hearing is that, Kate and Wendy, both of you are you have 2 greater grants maybe that you're interested in applying for. It's just a matter of using today and work through to applications.
I've got skills that could teach kids how to learn web design. I mean, I've been diving deep into web design and digital art. Those are skills that, if I wanted to touch things with my hands, I've been going into hammering the heck out of metal, right? But if you're talking about how to help the kids, like, it could be art, but it also could create skills that could take them into career paths, and that's something in the arts, which is not something that we're focused, I think, in this community. I'm new, 3 years new, so I don't know for sure. But where? Just down in the valley, like Redlands, San Bernardino, Longmont area.
So regional, but not.
But not
local,
specific
yeah,
to this
that's a lot.
rural space, yeah. Anyway.
It's always been computers in schools. To get so software is a skill that children need to learn, and I mean, if we want them to get anything, it's a computer so they can learn
Just start
editing and well, no, I think they need, playing.
When I say
Yeah.
playing, I play in the digital space. That means, like, if you ever explore QR codes are not just a way.
Yeah, I
to get-
understand playing in the digital
digital
space, but I also know the way most people play on the internet. that, so
Oh,
that's
okay,
my
yeah.
opinion.
Well, this is all, great, and I think things for us to consider as we are thinking through the grant application process. And Kenneth and I have been talking a little bit about this in the form of assessments and being able to assess a grant application, who is doing the grant making, understanding what their goals are, and then being able to assess yourself, right, subjectively. And Kat, there's like some similarities to the whole job application process, right? Like, how do you communicate who you are, your experience, your background, the programs and services that you have available, right? To then go after the funds that you are interested in receiving. And so, today's conversation is going to be a little bit about how to leverage AI in order to do so. And Kenneth has some things that we're going to be talking about, like from a nonprofit perspective, that can help apply to some of the logic and thinking. But if we're, still going back to, just my thought process in terms of what some of the natural groupings and pairings that we're seeing, it sounds like Lindy and Kate have understandings of like not only the program services, the audiences that they're interested in impacting, but then potentially grants that they are interested in focusing on. So we're definitely going to want to use that as an opportunity to, develop some clarity for all of us. I'm hearing that Kat and Malika know that grants are something that you want to go after. You're just not sure which grants you want to go after and what the programs and services that you want to do. Is that correct? Is that a fair assessment? Yeah? Okay.
And then again, it's kind of like what I want to do, but like figuring out which grants. The time and effort. For a little bit. A lot of times it's just easier to be like, yeah, I'll shit out of pocket, but I need it to be more time and effort.
Sure.
That part,
Yeah.
Like, right.
I have a fiber or I'd like you to talk to, who is a wonderful woman who is talking.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that there's like a lot of different ways that we can approach those problems, those issues, so like where we all are in the grant writing, grant seeking journey. I certainly want to spend some time with Malika and Kat will discuss how to use AI in order to help with, the programming aspects and being able to describe like, for example, Kat, you mentioned during our earlier part of our conversation that you're actually already doing the things. You've already started passing out the craft kits, and so I think the point is understanding how much you're paying out of pocket, who is right, how much that is, how much it costs, right? How the grant money is gonna help you to, scale up the program and how you write budgeted for yourself to get paid as well, right? Because that's the other thing that we want to consider. And the same working group for Malika. That being said, Kate, you mentioned the California Arts Council and some of the grants that they have available.
Yeah, there's a bunch, they have a bunch.
So can you talk to us a little bit about which grant are you going after? And we're gonna do like a live case study. That's okay.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm looking at both, the Impact Project, which is, would be based specifically on artists and their ability to make, an impact in communities in California, so underserved communities like ours. And that's specific artist based, so that would be like pulling in artists and getting ready for them. The other one is the creative youth development, which, that one would probably fit best for us because the city's a nonprofit. And it's for doing specific things that we'd like to do, so.
So impact projects and creative youth development?
Yeah.
Okay, and then apologies, I actually didn't allow Kenneth to introduce himself and Anna didn't introduce herself either. So maybe Kenneth, you wanna say hello, we'll have Anna go in and then we'll hop into these two grants.
Okay. My name is Kenneth Wyrick and I came up from Los Angeles today. My background is as an art conservator and I lived in Santa Barbara for 20 some odd years and was part of a number of programs we did fair amount of grant writing and learning the process, and from the library to personal relationships with different funding sources. And so I've been away from it for a while, but then here, when the opportunity came up to come and do something with grants, you know, the web is now our library, right? And so I found and curated a whole bunch of videos, but I found a couple of people that are just giving me all the information. And so it's like I'm saying, I don't have to recreate this. And it's just reaffirming, and Amber's doing it on a weekly basis, and she's the founder of her own, and she's just giving you the nitty gritty that, you know, people are so secretive or don't really want to share. So I've gotten excited about it. And so then Terrence being here and having the space and this being a small community, I envy you in one sense, but then the limit in resources and art programs and other things that you would have in a big city are almost non-existent, or you have to be innovative. So what I say about the grants is, if you have a good idea, most things start with a good idea that fits a purpose and that you can then become somewhat of an expert on. And then you just basically live out that idea. You communicate it, you gather information, you become, you know, you find a way to synergize with the audience that you're planning on serving and involving them in some way. So I also have a background in IT, or information technology, started way back when the web was created in 1990. Using software out of Stanford. And so I've come all the way through that whole era, and then some of the demographical information, I got into that over the course of just needing to be an authority on stuff, and the big data. I found that here's a big data, but how do you drill down to that data? It takes applications and know-how and database and that sort of thing. And then of late, the last year or so, is AI. And I dibble and dabble, but I do a whole recruitment thing. I put out these job descriptions, and people come to me, and they're mostly postgraduate students that are looking for experience in doing web or doing ERP, which is enterprise resource planning. So mixing education with business has been my big thing, and doing things like getting permaculture into the mainstream as opposed to just, you know, doing efficiency or other types of things. So I'm excited about the art, because I'm an art conservative first. I came up through LACMA, the LA County Museum of Art, where I just got a great art history. And I come from a music background. Math is what got me through school the whole time. But when I discovered the art by being in the galleries and meeting the scholars coming through, and then I wound up going to Pittsburgh for a year at the Carnegie Institute, the Sarah Skate Galleries, and did textiles and ceramic. They turned to ceramic because I have a paint chemistry background. So materials just came natural. I went to Boston for 2 years and learned painting conservation and true oil painting antiquity. And then I came back to Santa Barbara and spent, 18 years there, and 16 of it was in creating a conservation studio, which still is going on today. So I'm retired at this point. And for me, a lot of it is trying to pass on, and I'm so eager to work with people that are actually doing things. And with the arts, I've been pushed into looking at innovation. 5, 6 years ago, I said innovation, innovation's, it's an innovation. It wasn't, I discounted it, just like I've discounted sports for a long time, but the more you kind of learn and you can see, these are things that people can immerse themselves in and block out everything else. So it becomes this all-encompassing healing involvement. And so, anyway, I'm just excited that there's so many of the arts you know, people here that are looking at arts or crafts, or we were just talking about, you know, reuse and recycle, and yeah, and that's a repair shops and, you know, those type maker spaces. I've been part of the LA County Library makerspace type thing. We've been doing advocacies with math and, you know, there's all kinds of stuff. It covers the gamut. So STEM and STEAM are two other huge areas with the science, technology, engineering, but you add the arts, which is kind of the kingpin, and then you add the math, and I usually add science and systems on the end, just to kind of give us, but it's the integration of all of those that then makes us whole. It's like our body. All our systems are in one, you know, all so tightly integrated that you know, it works and it's better than the sum of the parts. So I'm just excited to kind of be here and to really to do the art part again, or at least to look at how we elevate and give it the priority that it should be in our lives and you know, have the benefits. We can see that we'll be able to see the benefits to the community, I feel, you know, when it's all said and done. So thank you for being here. The first session, we had standing room only, and it was like a bit of a mob scene that, but it all kind of worked out, you know, we tend to manage. So thank you for being here, and I'm looking to work kind of individually, but at the same time as collectively as we can, as a community. I do a lot of community type stuff and digital literacy, seniors, that sort of thing is a big, you know. And I teach them about operating systems, and you know, it's like, and it's so neat to get into it once you take the time to break it down and kind of talk to it, and might have to repeat it 4 or 5 times, but that's okay. You're right. When the light bulb goes off, they're like, they're the biggest advocate. So, anyway, I didn't talk much about that. Thank you for letting me say so much.
Want to introduce yourself, quick while?
Anna, I think I know most of you. I'm the chair of the PAC, and I'm also have a big project Mojave Land, so and I do want to say that besides, I think, did you talk about the small grants that are coming up?
I did not yet.
Yeah, so besides the PAC grants and the TBID grants, the Military Spouses Grant, Military Spouses Association, that's coming up. I got it last year. Yeah, so they didn't give me the format I wanted, but you know, if you have a project, it doesn't have to be cultural. It can be anything that's related to if you're serving military families or veterans or active duty, anything. You can apply for money and get yeah. MSA, and they sent me a note. They want to apply.
And that then becomes one of the outcomes that we are interested in developing after today, is keeping the momentum going. I think we've discussed like creating just like a once-a-month working group where we all just come and meet. Hey, these are the grants that we're working on applying for, we need feedback, but just offering Black Cactus as a safe space to workshop, you know, your grant applications. And some of that will then be the follow-up communications, and that, you know, I don't think we're building a database quite yet of grants that we find, but as we learn more about them, you know, the idea is that based off of what we know about you all, the projects that you're working on, your skill sets, the industries, we can just start routing grants to you, and, you know, there's like one less place for you to have to look, right, to get the application. So, you know, you're getting the information and the accountability of, you know, other people to work with you on applying, right? I think that is the benefit also for, you know, because I know, you know, Anna, you got grants you want to apply for, Wendy, you got grants you want to apply for, Kate, you have grants that there's so many of you that I've got Kate, Kat, and, you know, and there's a Kai here, and I'm like, all right, there's lots of Kate today. You know, if Lauren, for example, if you're not ready for an application, right, that maybe doesn't mean that you maybe can perhaps support Anna's application, where she might, need to build out a budget and have an organizational chart that is directly not within her skill set, right? But the idea, maybe she needs somebody. Well, you don't know that, you just said you do everything, right?
They
You
said I do
know,
everything.
but,
I
right,
didn't.
but that's even part of it, is like having the data in place that helps us to tell the story of our grant, right? Which is, hey, I'm asking for $100,000 and X number of dollars goes towards my equipment, X number of dollars goes towards my staff. And these are the 5 staff members or subcontractors that I have available when I'm paying them by the hour, and you know what I mean? It's having that narrative combined with the quantitative data that helps us establish, in my opinion, a robust application, right? So, on that first point, just sort of considering like the narrative and, the qualitative description of, our applications, and again, Kate.
We have one more person.
Oh, that's right, man, I'm good. Darian, why don't you go ahead and say what's up, man?
We've all kind of introduced ourselves and talked about why we're.
Yeah.
I'm Lieutenant Lee. I'm Darian. I'm the legal husband. So I'm pretty much just here for my life experience, being a lot about more people who actually try to do better for themselves instead of like just settling where they're at now. They just want to improve themselves more and more every day, no matter what age you are. I kind of love that. So I want to surround myself with more people like that. So at least I know that older I get, that's not the end of me or staying in line with you.
Can I brag on you a little bit? Can I brag on you a little bit?
I should not.
Darian,
I wanna make one.
I know, right? Oh, well, I'm already trying to tell Malika she needs to be selling these for like $100 a piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she makes these, and they're super soft, number one,
Repurpose stuff,
But Darian he's a Marine. And we have been talking about personal, professional development, what his career could look like, after the Marines, right? And we've talked about, some of his like business plans. He's talked about like cybersecurity and technology. All there might be grants for that, right? And so the opportunity comes, in my opinion, in understanding who you are, the grants maybe that you want to go after, and what you're going to do with the grant money based off the programs that, whether it's like cybersecurity, technology boot camp, or, anything like that, right? So, exactly, right? So glad to have you here, brother. All right, so putting you on the spot, Miss Co-Chair of the time?
Vice chair?
Vice Chair. I want to hear, so you said not the impact, well, you're applying for 2, it's the impact project and then, creative youth development. So I guess my first question for you is, how did you learn about these 2 grants, and how did you narrow in on these 2 grants as your focus for applications?
I learned about these just, the California Arts Council is something I've known about for a long time, and they, on their mailing list, you'll get their announcements about all of the programming that all the funding that they do. They have a cycle where they put out these grant applications, and I kind of just knew it was coming up. We applied as the PAC last year for one of this group, which it was for organizational development. Didn't get that one, but that is something we're still looking at the possibility of. But for sure, I didn't know that the impact grant was coming up, and I don't think I knew specifically about the youth one, but I was just looking through the grants, specifically looking for things that had come up while we've been in workshop tonight, because there's a lot of need, and the grant was great, and it's done a lot, but it didn't reach into places we wanted it to necessarily. And so taking all that information in, I kind of had this like roster of like what would fit for.
Facts.
And so I was like, all right, these 2 fit, and then when I had a meeting with probably all of you for this about what would work well for doing this idea of a community arts center, or whether it's collaboration, which I've been wanting to talk to you about, but or we have this after school program that's part of the city funding it, I really, really believe in this city being able to help us individually accomplish something that most places can't, because we're a small community. And we're full of all of us, so why not? You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I was like, let's just keep going and try.
So so if we're thinking out loud, like from a user perspective, right? I'm sure we can all empathize to this. You apply for a grant before, you apply for a job before. But it sounds like you were aware of the impact project grant last year based off of an application, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like you didn't get the grant. Or
We
you
didn't
didn't.
apply for the impact.
No, we didn't apply for the impact or the youth development. We applied, yeah, we applied for the organizational one. If you see when so what you should always, everyone should be looking at this when the California Arts Council puts them out about this time every year. So they just put it out last Thursday, I think it was, and all of us are just like, oh, wait. And so they move things around and stuff and kind of make it a little harder or easier, or whatever, dial them into what they're trying to actually do. I mean, the state is trying to make an impact with the arts, so, they have specific areas that they're trying to meet, so I'm looking at it from the perspective of how I look for grants. It's like, you kind of get an idea of what group is trying to make what difference, and you kind of see how you fit with each of them, and you kind of gear toward it. So I just knew this was coming and it was going to fit.
So, and to that point, and this then becomes part of my first recommendation in terms of incorporating AI into your value stream, right? I mean, definitely thank you for that, and in my opinion, behind the scenes, there's a bunch of AI happening that we probably aren't even aware of, right? The first AI is like, it's not artificial intelligence, it's just real intelligence that Kate, you just displayed, and that, hey, there was a grant last year, right? And these guys are doing the same thing over and over again. So I need to be on the lookout, monitoring maybe my inbox or going to the website. I need to be intelligent because I've already assessed an organization that aligns with me, my value sets, the people that I'm interested in targeting, and they have the funding, right? And what happens based off of engaging with their website, with their social media, is that they start using their AI, right, in order to understand you better, and to then start sending you reminders, notifications, hey, grant application is coming up in 2 weeks, grant application is coming up in 1 week. Start getting your ducks in a row, right? And also the deadline is coming up at, a certain time frame, right? And that opportunity to combine your actual intelligence with the artificial intelligence that this organization, this body has, right, allows you to do several things in the form of preparing yourself, preparing your application, and then also helping you to gauge or to estimate the number of projects that you perhaps are going to be working on at any given moment, right? Because if we then know, hey, well, California Arts Council has not just one grant that I'm interested in, eligible for, but there are 3, right? Well, now all of a sudden you need to put a little bit more intelligence from a project management perspective to, in my opinion at least, prioritize which of those applications you're focused on, which of the ones maybe we can like repurpose aspects of our application and not have to do, so much work. We have to assess whether or not there's any conflicts of interest, right? It helps us to, in a lot of different ways, with the actual intelligence of the grant process is helping us to not only assess the organizations that we are applying to, but assessing ourselves, right? And our own capacity, our own ability to get the grant in, right? And then also what to do once, hopefully, like that application comes back, right? And that's where the full application is. So I would just say that process of going out and seeking grants can sometimes be a little bit challenging and tricky, sometimes overwhelming. And sometimes something that I deal with all the time is finding out about a grant like a week or 2 before it's due, and if I'm lucky, I will have an application previously that I can update, but that being said, what I really love to have is as much time as possible for me to consider what's coming up so that I can slowly work on my project and not have to go back to the college days where I was like cramping the night before. And that's what sometimes it feels like. And AI has been great, in order to help with that. But I've also recognized that sometimes my grant applications have mistakes, right? And so my first step of the assessment process is just to have a steady trickle in of grants that are coming in at any given time. So one of my favorite websites to do that, we talked last time about Grant Station Insider, but something that I really love is Google Alerts. And are you all familiar with Google Alerts? Talk to me, Anika, what's Google Alerts?
Well, I mean, I heard of it, but I never used it. Like that.
Is that where you like put in a phrase that you're looking for? Yeah, I used to use it, like, when I was teaching at high school, I wanted to know whenever something came out about Mac, and so I had like, I used it like 20 years ago.
Right. But that is like that action of, it's called creating an automation, right? Which is an example of we're taking advantage of artificial intelligence. You can now navigate over to alerts.google.com or google.com/alerts, and you can put together a string of keywords directly related to the thing that you are interested in, and they will send you, based off of your cadence, they will send you an email once a day, once a week, once a month.
Can you say the website?
Yeah, alerts.
Google Alerts.
.google.com.
Or like sometimes when I'm searching the same thing over and over again, it'll pop up. It's like, no, my inbox is full already, but yeah, I've seen
Totally.
that before.
Well, and there are other automations that we can do for that, right? In order to help solve for that, which we can talk about, right? But I would recommend just creating a couple Google keyword alerts for grants for creatives, grants for technology, whatever industry that you're interested in, right? And just have somebody delivering information straight to you versus you having to go out and seek these grant applications, et cetera, right? The idea is that we're trying to build proactivity into our process, right? Versus like being really reactive. And that's ultimately the goal of the artificial intelligence, right? Is that it allows us to be a little bit more proactive with our efforts versus like being reactive to, the grant application process. Okay. So that's the first step that I would recommend. Now, if you are, again, a little bit more advanced and you recognize like, well, hey, I've applied for grants before in the past, like there are grant applications that I know each year I'm going to go after just because you're on a mission and they're a perfect fit or whatever it is, right? Once you have done, in my opinion, that process of assessment where you're like, they're a fit for me, I'm the fit for them, we need to we're going to get married, we just got to figure it out, right? And that's really what the application is the proposal, it's like, that's really what you're putting together. It's like, this is why you should like me, you know what I mean? And I'm going to help you to build the life that you want. You're going to help me build the life that I want. It's magical and beautiful, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we all know, what's up, Kurt? How you doing? Hey, how you doing? Good. You can grab a chair in the back and then feel free to get set up. So,
No, I was just kind of wanting and kind of keep the circle kind of moving, a little tight over there. I'll help you with the chair.
oh, okay.
Thanks. Yeah, you're gonna say this is fine, yeah. You're the reporter?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I remember you. Thank you, sorry.
No, you're fine, Now, we all know that like marriage on paper, that person that you meet might be really good on paper, right? But then what happens like after a couple of years, you start recognizing, hey, maybe they're not the person that I thought that they were, maybe they were the person, as advertised, right? But ultimately, if we don't do a good enough job of, well, I think it's sort of twofold, right? If we as applicants don't do a good enough job of assessing the organization that we are applying to, assessing the requirements, right? That grant might cost us a lot more time, energy, and attention than we thought that it was worth, right? And that can come in the form of reporting requirements, that can come in the form of, you might have to deal with an executive director that you maybe don't really like working with, There's all sorts of things. And on the flip side, right? Like if you submit an application and they, it goes through their review process and you're not, as advertised, like that impacts their plans. Sometimes they're a little bit frustrated. And so the idea is that, in my opinion at least, we are developing grant applications and we have relationships with the grant makers that we can have ongoing programs, right? Like once we have fulfilled the requirements for whatever that first cycle is, they know that we are as advertised, we know that they are as advertised, and we want to keep the relationship working over and over again, right? Now, you mentioned earlier, like sometimes they don't always, it's not always like a one-to-one. Sometimes they make slight changes year over year, or they change the location of the application, right? So that then becomes part of your responsibility is understanding the current requirements versus, previous year's requirements, which is also, part of my next step of the recommendation of going after grants is, they don't always do this, but if they ever have, like a pre-grant meeting, one of the best things that you can do is to ask them questions regarding the program, whether or not it has been funded before, and who got funding in the previous cycle, right? And understanding who some of the competition was and what they were able to get and what programs were successful and how well they did. That sort of data is going to help you to understand what it takes to create a winning proposal, right? Now the state does and everyone does it a little bit differently. Typically, you're not going to be able to have access to the applications, but that can then help to inform your competitive research.
Yeah, so on the impact grant, that's really interesting. You can see every group that got it from last year. And I went through and looked at what groups got it in San Bernardino County and listed it and how much they got, and their thesis was there. And so it's super helpful.
I think they do, they may have listening sessions for these grants at the bottom of the page. They're gonna upload videos also that they have not done yet, but.
This is great.
The thing about the California Arts Council grants, even if you don't feel like they're for you right now, going through the process of it and really listening and doing all the things like you're going to even is an educational experience. Just the creative one grant which we got, the process that they went through of teaching us about grant writing, it was insane. And I learned so much just from doing that. And so, that's California's there to support you.
And that's the reminder, in my opinion, is that going after a grant might sometimes feel frustrating if you're not getting the results that you want, but if you're committed to the process, to the effort, it only makes you and your organization that much stronger. Because ultimately what you're doing each time is refining and developing your elevator pitch, which then helps with some of the other supporting documents, right, in the form of your organizational statement, your mission, vision, core values. And then what's really important is like the description of the programs and services that you offer, and then also the impact statement, right? Like some of the quantitative measures directly related to the work that you do. And that data then helps to start putting together the picture in the grant makers' heads, right? So that they can start seeing the movie that's in your head, so that you can then start, because ultimately it's supposed to really be a collaboration. They want to give you the money. They want to help support your wildest dreams, right? And so your job then becomes defining and determining what your wildest dreams are and explaining to them why it's a match made in heaven, right? So that you can go live happily ever after. Now, to that whole point, in the same way that we are spending a lot of our time researching these grants and understanding them and writing and preparing, et cetera, true empathy, in my opinion, is understanding that the grant makers are having to do probably as much or more work in order to get you ready to apply for the grant, right? And so if you're not doing the hard work of reading through the data, all of the attachments, attending the meetings, asking questions, sometimes that shows up in the quality of your application. Maybe you didn't answer something in the right way, or you missed something, right? And ultimately, in order to maintain impartiality, in order to be fair and to weigh everybody's application equally, they more often than not have a scoring system, right? And if some sort of administrative error or something small that you didn't pay attention to cost you points on your application, don't get me wrong, all that goodwill of working on the app and You know what I mean? Like, it feels good because you're prepared, but I'll tell you what, like, getting those emails like, sorry, we couldn't accept your application because you didn't do this, or it's annoying, it sucks, you know what I mean? Especially if you're like me, you know, you waited to the last minute to do your application, and you're like, why'd I spend 8 hours doing that? I might as well just, you know, anyways. So one of my favorite things to do is to, you know, quickly to like skim grants, right? And just like get, you know, like a 10-minute assessment, right? And so one of the things, like Candy over here is one of our mentors, and has been great, also from LA, right? She's somebody, well, her and Kenneth are both people that I can maybe like run a grant by, right? And you know, Kenneth will give me a hard time because I've got a big appetite. I always want to do these really big projects, et cetera, right? But I have recognized if I see a line item of like multi-millions of dollars, I can't do that by myself typically. You know what I mean? And that's part of like my quick gut check on how much do I really want this grant, right? You know, because if I really want this grant, not only am I going to have to come with my part, right, but then I'm most likely going to have to find partners, collaborators, subcontract. It's a little bit of a bigger deal, right? And I'm not always willing, able, or ready to do that, right?
I think there's such a thing as too much money, and it's not a blessing.
It's not. It's not.
No, it gets to, like, it's
It's out of
extraordinarily,
control.
yeah, it's extraordinarily large, like, you know, this, our $100,000 grant. I mean, I've never gotten a grant before, and so I went from, you know, I ran a lot of programs on nothing.
Right.
But to go from 0 to 100,000, I mean, the extraordinary amount of work. It wasn't enough, you know, we asked for 150, they gave us 100. You know, so that 50,000 is missing for sure in the ability to pay people to do the things that were necessary. And we're just extremely fortunate to have these wonderful people that we're working with, you know?
But then you could actually go ask for more money based on the validation of getting the
Yeah.
100,000. And I think,
Yeah, absolutely.
see, I've worked with a number of people and we put all this energy into going after this one grant and then they just go blank for a while. But you put all this energy into getting on your resources and your budgets and making stuff make sense, you need to go. The rule of thumb is you need about 5 grants to be almost assured of getting one. I mean, 5 qualified grants, not just throwing grants out everywhere, but those that you are qualified for, those that you can build a case on you needing this and you can show what your outcomes are going to be, how your agency is going to be better, serve more people, and expand your services, those sort of things. So going through, there is so much energy goes into doing the grant, but you need to be looking at 4 or 5 grants, or it's not even, I mean, you're wasting your time to that extent because you're only going to get a certain amount of the funding. And like with your grant, they're talking about distressed communities and I mean, this impact project, I was just going over it. I mean, have you thought out and identified the actual community?
Absolutely.
And
I just spent the last year doing that with this program. I mean, this program gave me the opportunity to go in and talk with everybody and to have community members out to like build all the connections, the coalitions, and just look like, we're ready to do it. Like, that's why, like, I had my meeting with Parks and Rec this afternoon to be like, are you in? And they were like, more than in. And so it's like, great.
And
So,
those then become documents that you can include in your application, the letters of support, et cetera, right? Now, I think that, you know, if we're looking at this application, and you mentioned already, like, this has been like a year in progress, right? And so, you know, I think as we start considering, you know, both the assessment of the grant application and then the formation of your grant application strategy, you know, you start seeing some overlap between like program and project management versus like long-term strategic planning and thinking, right? Which can be a little bit tricky in the form of, you know, like just like the tasks that you need to do in order to get your grant going versus the different, I sort of like considering your grant application in the form of chunks, right? And so typically your grant will be broken into, anywhere from like 5 to 10 different sections. And so if I, for example, there's a grant that has come in, I've assessed it, I realize that it's a fit for me, the application is due on, let's say like May 10th, I will then create a project for myself in my project management software that says, okay, I've got 6 weeks to get the application done. First week, I'm gonna do, section 4, 5, and 6, because those are the easiest parts and I've already got it done, right? The next couple of weeks, I'm gonna maybe do sections 1, 2, and 3, because those are heavier loads, right? I need to go out and get statements of support. I need contractors to identify, et cetera, et cetera. Now, going back to that first step of the process of the assessment, now, one thing that, in my opinion, AI is great for is, again, like just doing some of the interpretation, the understanding for us so that we can then go back to doing the things that AI can't do. AI can tell you about this application, right? AI can't go build the relationships for you to then, right? I mean, AI can do some of that, but you get what I mean, right? Like AI is not out there, shaking hands and kissing babies and, doing all that sort of stuff, right? So one thing that I like to do during the assessment process is just something very simple where I'll print out a PDF of the grant application or the form, the call for grant, excuse me. And then what I'll do is I'll go to a tool like ChatGPT or even Gemini, which is Google's product, actually, ChatGPT. And I'll run what's called a prompt. And prompt engineering is something that I would encourage you to study and that you can continue to talk about. And so what I'll do is I'll take the PDF and I'll attach it to a tool that ChatGPT has integrated called DALL-E. And so DALL-E is it does two things. It can help you take your prompts and turn them into visualizations, literally images, right? So you can write a prompt that's like, help me visualize a youth center in the desert that serves art to local community kids, right? And so DALL-E's thinking, it's like, it's interpreting my prompts, right? And it's gonna pop out a couple of images. Now, these images may be, in the same way that we've been taught, like from a writing perspective, show, don't tell. If you're, and again, this is dependent on, aspects of your grant application, right? But these might be images that you can include in your grant, right? Or your grant application that provides some context to the programs and services that you're interested in, right? Yeah.
Yes, I'm using the journey.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's good. Right. So, and again, if you don't have the words like in your, in your brain, right? Well, maybe you can use ChatGPT or something along those lines to help show what you're not doing a good job of talking to, right? And that maybe is another part of the grant application process is if you maybe get to like the second or third round after the application, they maybe will want to meet with you, right? And they will maybe ask you to create like a secondary presentation or for you to explain, right? And so, when I used to do like school presentations, I always used to have like little tchotchkes and things that can help show, not tell, right? Because I can be verbose, and the idea is that we are allowing the presentation, the technology to really like build the relationship to convince people versus, just like indoctrinating ourselves. Now, that being said, something else that going back to the PDF, right? We can quite literally take Creative Youth Development, California Arts Council. I can drop that document into ChatGPT and say, help me understand this grant from the perspective of a 7th grader, right? And so sometimes you might have this application that's like 154 pages. Ain't nobody got time for that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of it is like legalese and you know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, I want you to protect yourself, but like, if you're expecting me to read 150 pages just for me to find out that I'm not a fit for the grant, you got something else coming. You know what I mean? Like, I've got other things that I can and will be doing, right? Now, that being said, like, you definitely want to mine gold, you know, and so, where we have this page now, and so I'll just quickly, I'm gonna do a trick, and I'm gonna select all on this page. And I'm gonna copy, and I'm gonna take this to Google Docs.
Hey, Terrence.
Yeah,
I'll catch you tomorrow, I have a class.
I know, we'll talk, you schedule time for tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see you. So I just quickly took all that copy, and I'm gonna use another feature of Google Documents to get an understanding of the number of words. So this one grant application that Kate just got to tell us about, the Creative Youth Development grant, has a document. This document is about 1,000 words, right? It's not too long, but you know, I mean, that's actually pretty good, right? But you know, again, like that's 1,000 words that she has to read through versus, you know, let's see, this 7th grade explanation that ChatGPT just got done writing for us. That is 417 words, right? And so the application that, you know, was found on the homepage, right? Creative Youth Development, background and purpose. The Creative Youth Development Program is rooted in CAC's belief that arts learning is an essential tool for healthy human development, and that it should be available to all young people throughout California, including but not limited to those whose lives have been impacted by, right? You know, like, and they have to use this language by design. You know, like a lot of it is, I mean, number one, it helps to qualify, you know, the people that maybe don't have the education, the background, the experience that can, you know, deliver on the results of the program. But ultimately, they typically will hire, you know, a legal team, you know, in order to help prevent like some of their liability, right? You know, because we're talking about handing out big checks for lots of money, like they have to protect themselves in a lot of different ways in order to make sure that they're, you know, discriminating against anyone, you know what I mean? There's lots of things, right? Now, that being said, the average person is not an attorney, you know what I mean? And I know I'm not an attorney, you know, and so when it comes down sometimes to, you know, breaking down, you know, these applications, it sometimes can be difficult, sometimes it can become tiring, sometimes it's just not something that I want to read, right? I want to be able to understand something quickly so that I can make a decision. And so, you know, my point then is if we didn't understand, you know, this language that, you know, is for all intents and purposes, based off of their understanding of their requirements, you know, my job or our job then becomes to understand from our own perspective, right? And so, you know, I love how ChatGPT did, you know, asking for them to, you know, regurgitate to me that application from a 7th grade perspective. They go, hey, imagine you're a part of a club, you're part of a club at school where everyone gets to do fun art projects like painting murals, making cool sculptures, or even putting on plays and dance shows. Now think of this club not just being at your school, but all over California, even in places where kids might not have easy access to art classes or materials. That's where the Creative Youth Development Program is like, right? And so, you know, again, like this just feels a little bit less scary to me, right, than this full document, right? And so, you know, that becomes, you know, one of my second recommendations for you all is to, you know, definitely like, you know, reading is a laborious process, you know what I mean? And not everybody, not everything is worth your attention or that effort that goes into reading, right? So why not use the tools, the technology to make your life easier, right? So that you can focus on the actions, the efforts that, you know, take more of your processing ability, you know, more of like your relationship building capabilities, et cetera, et cetera. Is this all making sense? Yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness gracious. Kenneth, where are you at?
I'm actually really interested in knowing more about where she's at with that impact. Let's get it on laws. I mean, because part of what happens is if they list 10 things, the people that do 6, 7, or 8 of those things are more likely to get it than the one that does 3 or 2. So oftentimes people say, oh, they just identified with one thing. But for it to really be a good match, you need to do the majority of the things that and somehow incorporate it. And it's only $25,000?
Yeah.
Right. But there again, there's a certain level of prestige, and actually they're putting in the veterans into this one as well. Did you read about that? They're including from last year, they had a separate category for veterans, and so now they're even including the veterans. So I just encourage you as you're going, try to identify as many, be able to extract what they give you as all of the areas that they're really interested in. And when you talk to people, see how many of those areas you can identify that they would then have some connection or service or could be included in your grant. That will greatly increase your chances of actually getting the grant. And like with a lot of these grants, you have to go year after year, because you're in a queue half the time.
Oh,
You know, the 70 people from last year and the 20 that they wanted to fund but didn't make the cut that are still doing it. And if you can show longevity in terms of coming back each year, I didn't get the money, but I'm back and I've enhanced my program some, I've got a little different slant on it. That's how it's that tenacious, and because they're really looking for the need.
Yeah,
They want to put the money where it's really needed.
And I have people who do grants that they know they're waiting to give it to that person. Oh, darn it, it's not this year either. Next year we'll make sure we give them the grant, like that. So like they are watching.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a queue. You go
Yeah.
into a queue.
There's
and
so many people who are qualified.
And they try to be so ethical and they're all, and so everything is inclusive now. And so they're trying to not discriminate against people because of their socioeconomic or where they live. And then, but also look at, in the collaboration, how you would cover an underrepresented area. Because even her program could easily fit into this, because they want the artists to be at the center of the program. And so, I mean, it's tough, but I think, and that's where the innovation comes in. You have.
It's painful because us as the PAC, being completely volunteers, we don't get paid at all. And we have to.
When we get these grants, we can't be paid because of the city of Twentynine.
Right.
Well,
I mean, I've worked more than full-time for nearly a year.
yeah, and also to apply for those grants, we have hired a grant writer. So our small budget, we're taking $2,000 out of our very small budget. And like saying, okay, we're gonna track a grant. Oh, it's not our turn again. That's $2,000 that we could spend on the community that we can't spend in the community.
It speaks to your commitment and then you just stress the need, and because they need to distribute it throughout the state. And so there needs to be there's some equity in that. So if you just build, you say we're really the volunteers and we know this is it, we're not even being paid. I mean, so it's that sort of case. You build such a strong, and they become empathetic to your, to your needs. And so anyway,
I really want to have meetings with everybody so I can figure out like which of the two,
Yeah, because you can't apply for, I think I read the California Arts Council, you can only get one.
That's
You
one,
can't-
it says, right,
Yeah.
if
You're
you're in
more.
another town, right, I'm at the youth and this, and it says no. If you're in a different category for the same project, you can do different projects for different, and it says project, it's a project based. So as long as it's project based,
and I
you
haven't
don't.
been all over the fine print yet,
But see,
but I
that's the
will
thing,
be.
and you should, and what you should do is extract all of what it says about all the different criteria, the things that they're looking for. And like I say, when you meet with some, mark off which ones those people, because then you go back and say, these are all the areas, and the more you get, the better your chances, because they're covering more bases with one grant. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Does that
yeah,
make a rational? And
yeah.
use their terminology whenever possible, right? Incorporate it into, and that's all part of alignment, right? But also start looking for other grants that you can then double, triple, or do along with the information you collected and where you're going with it. Because it looks good to them if you say, well, we've also applied to so-and-so, we've also applied to others. Because a lot of times they don't want to be the sole support, because if they don't fund you, then it doesn't happen, right? But if they know you're being diverse in what you're doing, that then says, oh, it's not all predicated, but we want to get them going, because if we get them going, then they'll get the other money, and you could, it's that whole, how they get to know your situation. But your volunteer, you should really pump up the volunteer efforts that are happening, because that's a very strong thing with nonprofits, or, I mean, you're a government agency though, right? But in that whole realm of what you're doing, I was part of the Santa Barbara Arts Council, and we did a lot of grant writing, and Jane Seymour, we did things at the Coral, fundraisers, and so those, don't count those out too. So overall funding strategy and planning, this is what I was telling Terrence, that each of you that are interested in, you need a strategy, a plan that basically says what it is, but then with that plan, you can share that with someone, and they might not do it all, but they can do one piece of it. But if you don't have your plan, and it needs to be a dynamic plan that can actually evolve as you get more information, and you do it based on the deadline. This is June or July?
June 6th.
Right, June 6th. So that's always, you start with the deadline and you work your way back, you create when you have to have things. And now, does the PAC have to approve the process?
Yes.
I mean, not sort of the process, but the
Yes.
proposal that you're going for the
Yeah,
grant.
so not only the PAC does, but the city council does.
Yeah.
So we bring it
long.
It
Right.
takes a long time,
Right.
so that's why I like, getting moving as fast as I can, and trying to get the parts together and, get the meetings with everybody, make sure I know what the parts are going to be, and then, just start.
And this is typical. There's a lot that goes into this. And so when you're doing it, but everything is not as complicated. This one is a bit more complicated because of the level where it's at in the competition at the state level.
In this case, very, very complicated.
Yeah,
Like,
so,
creating
and
a
that,
grant is extremely complicated because of that.
so as individual artists or whatnot, you could be part of this, but you could also do your own arts for, fundraising or grant writing, artist in residency, you have the golf, the golf, oh, that's right, she came in here last time, too, that was great. So, and yours is?
I have nothing up here. I'm in an organization in Gardena that's doing a film in October that they're in charge. It's a Buddhist queer outreach with the Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. So we're doing another film, so I'm just.
And is there a good story? Because here again, the story, think of your proposal as a story, right? You want to be able to tell that story, your passions, your disappointments, your triumphs, your aspirations, but then from a doable perspective in terms of what you have. So you're interested in funding for your film potentially?
I think so. I mean, they're doing fundraising, but, it's, I'm just listening and gathering. I think
Is it a nonprofit, the church? Or
the church is a nonprofit.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So that's a whole, and
That's
again,
another thing.
and it's back to the strategy.
Right.
What is the grant or funding strategy so that so they can be approved by the board? It's the same thing that, and
a church has quite the board.
Oh, I can imagine, because even having their bios and that sort of stuff on hand, it's like collecting these things before you actually go ask for money, because they might not ask you for all these things, but if you have it, it looks better because it shows that you're prepared and you have more of a business acumen and the structure to support what you're asking for. Because again, they don't ask you for all these things, but you can incorporate them into the narrative and other ways that then shows, what you have as an operational structure or as an organization. organizational wherewithal to, to achieve things. And so in kind, this volunteer part is an in kind. Now, they don't, to come back to the California grant, you don't need matching funds, which is kind of rare for government or public. You could consider public funds because it comes from money raised from the public. So that's good. So there's no matching funds, but there's a cap on this one for 25,000. And so anyway, any help we can do to help align people or come up with the story or the strategy. It sounds like you have good people and you're reaching out to your local community.
Well, I think that's part of today's session is, I think we talked about turning this into a little bit of a working session. So I do think that it'd be good for us to peel it off a little bit and maybe consider, what I would like to do is like maybe about 10 people, so maybe 5 groups of 2 each, or we can mix it up. But, what I would like to do is if we have one person who has identified a grant and maybe has an application that they're interested in submitting, we spend a couple of minutes assessing the application, assessing the application, assessing the programs and services that you are offering, and then maybe working through an elevator pitch, and then we can maybe come back and talk in a group form a little bit regarding our findings. Would you guys be open to that? Yeah. So why don't we start pairing
Can I
off?
say one more question? I just noticed they have a healthy,
Healthy Places Index,
right,
HPI,
right. So,
very aware of it.
right, okay. So drilling down, zooming in,
Yes.
capturing that, talking specifically, and even breaking it up into smaller sections that shows, anyway, because that's the demographic. That's the, that.
Yeah, and it's very, I have to say, because that was the sort of the key component to the Creative Core grant. And all of us who got it have had the most difficult time reaching our HPI. And I think a lot of it has to do with how we think about creative programming. A lot of it comes from up here and ideas rather than from being in our community, working with people day to day and being like, yeah, there's a need there. How can we service
Involve
you?
them in the process
yeah.
and
And so-
brainstorming.
And so the Creative Core grant, I've been fighting to write the boat from the beginning, and there's no writing it. And like, the only writing it that I've found is starting again with what I've learned through trying to write it, which is I have all these connections I've made with people who are like, yeah, it doesn't really fit what I do. And they're not.
Well, that's part of the collaboration.
Yeah,
Actually
it's the
builds
collaboration.
the actual participant in the
I
collaboration.
mean, trying to get people to come out to our programs for the Creative Core grant for Workshop 29 and actually hit our HPI is impossible. Literally impossible. Because the HPI is actually people who are in our community, who are underserved, who are the poorest of the people.
Incarcerated.
Yeah, incarcerated, either at or below the poverty line. And so who is servicing those people in our community? And it's not, the artists who want to do something, but we can. And how we do that is about, it starts with going in the way your church does, going in the way the school does, going in the way the food pantry does, so those are the ways that you actually reach the HPI, but that's not what we did, so.
That's why I say make a list of all those that they give you in the grant, and that's your lead in. Can you help us serve any of these communities? Are you interested in helping us serve and provide arts, instruction, education that actually alters their lives? I mean, diversion is one of the greatest things for people that are lost in their quagmire, right? Lost so into deep. And so into a creative expression to something that they hadn't even thought about, but you engulf them in the environment, so it often going to get that. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I think that's a good
That's what I'm-
marketing is getting all those, and when you talk to somebody, say, we need help with approaching these communities, here's a list of all, are there one or more of these that you can help us come up with activities for with artists. And I think then you use that as a starting point to show the broadness of it, because people are saying, oh, this doesn't fit. I mean, they're gonna find somebody in the family, somebody at the church, or somebody at the school that falls into some of these categories. And so anyway, I'm just kind of, trying to, that's why I brought it up, because it's a very, it's little money, but if you get it, you're in the door, and it can open the way for a lot of others.
So with these two having the more fully fleshed out programs, and grants that you're interested in applying for, my hope is that those can be the working groups that we work to establish for the next like 15 to 20 minutes. So, Kat and Lauren and Kurt, why don't you surround Kate, and then Wendy, Anna, and yes, you're participating. Darian, we're gonna work.
Or you have to include us. too.
Well,
So we both join one, you have two groups, and if we need to mix up, we can, it's not.
And you can go back to the conference room if you want. You can hang out here. I'm gonna put on some music and I'll turn on the lights in the background. But I think the idea is that for next like 15 minutes or so, we're listening to you, your program, the grant that you're going for, and we're working on both of you working on putting together pen to paper
And the strategy.
We're just testing.
Yeah, getting your strategies, understanding your strategy, being able to speak your strategy and know what you're gonna be doing tomorrow, tonight, or for what period of time, working back from you. And then how you get incorporated into this, I mean, as an individual, as your group, or as part of others, because the town is too small to not have that overlap and be able to do different, it is about trying things. Because there's no real guarantees, and as long as you bring your passion and your ability to kind of focus on some of the issues, and you have to read the grant, know enough about it to involve other people in the way you need it. So,
Okay.
I'll be part of it.
All right. So why don't we put you guys in the conference room with that, and then we'll hang out here.
Yeah, this will be just a short kind of debriefing, getting the next step.
I'm sorry, where do you want me to go?
You can hang out with these guys over here. So you guys are right in the back.
She will.
I went around them right now. That's what.
Add it to us.
You watch her in, she's like. Crazy.
I recently learned with a dubbing.
That runs through the year. Like as long as they're not specific, whether we're talking about scholarships or grants, so I just. We're funding for freedom of creative.
No,
Cover just to the.
And I want to ask you,
So we got awarded.
I
think that's in scholarship.
sponsorship allows, and it's like, it's quite beautiful.
We just made it.
I do. I did actually reply, but are these that?
Yeah,
Okay, cause I'm here looking at them like I should have.
I know, I totally get it. And I get there's a process for it.
No, and actually, this is a really good.
Really does.
I do, I work on the beach.
Okay, I was
gonna say,
on Wednesday.
Sorry. I will, find out more, but that's okay.
I got you.
Tomorrow I have, morning open and then.
That's all you.
So, yeah, I need to work on one. Friday, I got. But anyway, yeah. Monday I always keep open.
Yeah.
I'm just following what Rich was scheduled, so kind of reflecting Sunday. Yeah, it's my off day, Saturday.
For what?
So.
Because-
Before the end of the night.
What's that?
Yeah, it's gonna meet with all of those other. they were in my, so I'm here not
Oh, yeah.
really representing Gretchen other than I know she
So
was
that's
part of this, and I have to judge.
I know.
She's going to need to look for it, fairly and strategically, yeah, it's not that strength. I don't understand, yeah, but she is there to deliver this dream. of her with her the other night. She was having a party, and she had all of this semester events. She's wanting to figure what's going on there, right? Yeah, three working artists, one's gonna be moving as soon as we go out, so there's two of us in there.
Oh.
So part of it's infrastructure for that facility. Or some other. Right.
Yeah.
But let's, like, I think I wanna, maybe we could.
Medicine freaks me out.
She's just amazing, because she doesn't have an agenda, she goes in there and just, I'm so blessed by that creative exploration. I really want to help you there.
And that's like having a place where kids can go.
Like that?
Is so important.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's some way that we can all connect dots. And it's just sort of like, well, we should try to money. But it's not just trying to money. I want to create a structure that we can use to like get money in the future, you know? And yeah, so I just, I know. So you just hear them.
Yeah, they're waiting on you.
Come in here strategizing.
Ah, Lee.
It'll be only be $100. It's so disheartening, but you know, so, yeah.
Use the chair to. I'd like to be able to offer scholarships. I thought right now, my virtual exposures to charter school. So these are homeschool students. There is a whole segment of the population who don't really know what she has there. If there were enough scholarship funds.
You know, it's out still, but it's what do I think by that date, what's it gonna take for that to be done? And then it's like, all right, well, I think it's gonna take me 10 steps to be done by the 30th. Let me start with the end. What's the end of the story? You know what I'm saying? And then you go from the end of the story to what's the middle of the story. And what's the middle of the story? What's the beginning of the story? That's the first step. Is to understand like where you're gonna be once you get it done.
And then we've got a deadline here at the beginning
You
of
feel me?
April for that next period, if I'm ready for it. So I need to reset that.
That's all. With that, the problem is that you can see the mountain.
You know, it's just.
You know
like-
what I'm saying? Versus you're like, no, let me see this on the other side of the mountain. And that helps to remind you why you're doing the crossing. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to get to the top, because what most people happen is they start hiking up.
So I'm.
And then, oh, they get slide up too tight. I don't want to do it anymore.
If they want to.
You know what I'm saying? But you start at the end of what the story is, the
Then
mountain,
go elsewhere.
right?
If they want
You
to
know,
be-
and the thing is, it's not a straight line. A lot of people like to think it's a straight line.
Going on in their marketing, but they need to focus
It's
on
never like that.
following-
You know, sometimes you can cut through the mountain, sometimes you can go around. Sometimes you get to a spot and you can't walk it, you have to climb it, you know what I'm saying?
But you were. How long it took you up? You were.
Just gotten methodology.
And you know, what's so funny is most of the time we're spending 2 hours thinking about how long it's gonna take us to get up there. You know what I mean? So, all right, so talk to us about your plan and the program.
So let's pretend I have a whole concept of a grant, because I don't yet.
Well, you have an audience though, right? That you're
Right.
interested in impacting and.
Right, and
Okay.
so there's, I was telling that I don't think there's awareness about what's over at the Creative Center at this point in the general population, mostly it's serving serving charter school kids. That I think it can expand, especially for people and help pay for it. So the program is arts education and I'm doing music education. Right now, I'm just in its infancy. So what that, I mean by that is I'm just growing it slowly. I don't want to do a big kaboom because I'm not ready for it.
So you are working to,
And basically establish myself for 1 year and grow it a little more organically.
self-funded?
So right now, it's self-funded. What I'd like to do is really apply for minor grants to provide scholarships and allow me to keep doing this and not have to abandon it. I don't want to abandon it. I think it's worthwhile.
So what I'm hearing is the beginning of a business plan where you are developing a pilot program, proof of concept, you're not losing any money, and you want to apply for grants throughout the year that can help fund
Fund scholarships to people. I mean, I'm already building my own infrastructure. There's a lot of sweat equity, right? But when I say infrastructure, I just mean ways for people to read about it, how to send it out there and market it, how to make the scheduling easy. That's kind of that.
So my questions from a data perspective is, what is the cost of the program to each of the scholarship recipients? And how many scholarship recipients do you want to serve with these?
Right. Okay, so I would have to do an assessment of my available time. Like for instance, I'm scheduling Tuesdays through Fridays and between 2 and 4. Most children are gonna have 30-minute lessons, right? So if I were maxing that out with an hour break for lunch, then you're talking about
So Tuesdays through
6
Thursdays?
hours, 5 hours after lunch, so that's 10 lessons. So that's per day, so that's 10. So, right, this is literally 4 separate day camps. And if I'm trying to help the greater population of them expand my hours into the, right, so that's 10 or 1 hour lunch. That gives me 5 hours of lesson time, and if I'm trying to expand it into an evening, I probably want to open it at 5 to, so 4 to 6, so that's an extra 2 hours, and that's 4 lessons. So a total of, if I was maxing 2 lessons a day, which is minimal.
Or unless you have,
These are just mechanics right now, so we're
it,
saying.
well, and that's the thing, right? So if you're then saying, okay, my capacity as an individual is.
Probably 8 to 10, it's max.
Right.
That's probably more.
And then the decision then is if you do want,
And that's a
if
day.
the successful pilot program is 14 lessons a day, do you then need to identify a partner, a collaborator, a co-applicant that can help facilitate the remaining
I know
6
there's other
days?
musicians in the area. I
Well-
know there are, but they may not be running lessons anymore. There's a little tear off sheet on ground squirrel for somebody who's teaching music.
So
But
just going back and forth, because you don't have to have the commitments yet. I think the idea is that we want to have a business plan. So if you're saying that you can do 8 to 10 per day, I would be curious to know the number of days
4 days.
per week, so for an entire school year.
Yeah, it is for the school year, it goes out into, you know, Boston summer, most people don't. It's a little scattered. And then, yeah, so.
Well, I'm interested in contextualizing your pilot. So is your pilot program 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? And if you are then doing 14 lessons per day, how many days within that 12
Yeah,
months?
there's just maximum.
I understand, but we're creating a range, right? So if we're saying, 8 to 10 per day by yourself or 14 days with a team, right? That becomes the capacity for the pilot program. But, we still need to talk about length of time, which is, I don't know enough about your industry, so I can't tell you about. Well, I'm just saying, in terms of like when kids are gonna be available. Cause even if you have the capacity to do 8 to 10 or even 14, doesn't mean that you're gonna be booked out all the time, right? Do you have the signups in place, like, do you need to work with schools, you know, to help in order for you to like start sourcing the students? Do you like, these are other considerations.
I've already tried.
Okay.
The school will not source anybody who is not a nonprofit, so I can't get corrections information in the school. I feel like that's a disservice, but I understand.
So I think the question in, I mean, again, from a grant perspective, are you looking to get some grant money in order to apply as a nonprofit? Are you looking to get grant money in order to keep up the good fight and apply like as an individual?
Right now, we're both talking, so if I'm in the exploration phase, I don't know where I wanna go.
Work together, that's what we're gonna do.
I know here, I know now.
And she said,
So she can't have anyone roll in, it's all wire fences, they're too narrow. You can't roll across that gravel wall, and there's bathrooms you cannot go into.
small ones from, I wanna say,
That's,
and so that's me, the two of those that is, you know, that.
I think I mean, the honest point though, right, is that you have to decide what the scale of the program is and how that then has an impact on different liability, reporting requirements, et cetera, while also then being mindful of the
Reporting
number.
requirements a little too far beyond me, I mean, I just looked at the T-bid grant and then reporting requirements, I was like, all right, that's not,
Well, I mean,
it's a little beyond me, actually, it was demographic studies and like impact studies and stuff, and
it's gonna be dependent on the grant, to Anna's point, right? I think that if you're saying that, okay, well, I need $20,000 over the course of the year, right? That then helps you to
So I'm gonna-
contextualize the size.
so I'll be realistic. Initially, I want to grow a business that supports me, where I'm in contact with people and making changes. So I need to be supportive, but I want to make a difference. I don't want to just go work somewhere where it's not making an impact. So those are my two personal requirements. And I have gone down the road where I imagined very big structures. I thought start small and I thought it grow it. Because when I imagine this big thing, I can imagine the big thing, but I can't imagine the steps to get there. So I have to just take it with my step that's in front of me.
So I think then, I mean, I agree with you in theory, just like literally what we were just talking about. I think starting with the end, that helps you to contextualize a little bit the journey that you're gonna have to go through. And I do think that it's important, I mean, you mentioned impact. So if you are then describing a successful 12-month pilot program, what is the ... after a successful program?
Right, then what is the impact to the community?
Exactly.
So-
And can we work on that maybe a little bit?
Yeah.
So, you know, because when I think about,
What I imagine is that I've got students who are capable of paying, and students I can offer scholarships to.
so students that are capable of paying, and then students that you can offer scholarships
And that's
to.
where our work. Right.
What does a half an hour lesson, what's the going rate for half an hour music lesson?
I don't know. So I'm charging $30 for 30 minutes. Or, and this is what I really want to encourage, is $4 lessons on
$30 for 30 minutes or $4 for 100.
And that's the whole purpose. We need to look for scholarship or full.
And you're right, but they'll need to put something, you have to give them a game, it's important for their extra benefit.
So, all right, so now we're starting to get into numbers, I like, right? So let's go continuing on into the ... which is, okay, like, you know, I mean, from a business perspective, yes, you wanna be selling, 30-minute lessons for $30 or 4 lessons for $100, because that helps you hit your, bigger sure, and, value, you're happy with joyful. That's like, your problem. Now, help us to understand why the lack of your service or your product is a problem to this community, and how your value proposition is gonna make life better by using That's why we're here.
You're expanding online with any creative activities, you're actually creating solutions that are what is it, left brain or left brain solutions. You're basically solving for science and everything else, but you've got to leave that creative space. Otherwise, you're sticking the kids in little pens with no expansion.
That's,
As the language is so important to learning development.
So with a lot of my students, what I'm doing, it's not traditional. What I'm teaching them is about listening, interpreting what they're hearing, and then tools for making the sounds they want to make. That is, and joy, the joy of music. So it's, I'm not trying to train like orchestra instrumentation. I'm training people to enjoy. I want them to have an impact on their words.
okay, so to your first point, you maybe don't have the words. That doesn't mean that other people don't. And she just got done telling you that there is research readily available that has all the language that you can quite literally quote from and include in your applications as you're going after a grant. And that maybe is like one of the first things that we want to do in order to help recreate a more grandiose business plan, right? Is having maybe 1 to 3 tentpole data points that you can always pull from. Like, I had a food technology grant called Food Trust. Part of my elevator pitch was 40% of the food that we produce in this country ends up in the trash can every year. And I use that anywhere and everywhere that I could, right? Because that helps to contextualize the problem that you were trying to solve for other people. Because even if I'm not throwing away 40% of the food, I'm like, 40%, I'm throwing away 20% of my food. You know what I mean? Like, it helps make the introduction, the empathy, the connection, right? Like that much stronger. And the idea is that it's not you selling, right, your solution. It's, no, there's other people that care about this thing just in the same way that I do, but you know what? You have somebody in front of you that's willing to do something about it. And here's how you just,
Yeah, so you asked what the impact would be, right, after a year? I don't have my thoughts on that. I know there's an impact, and the impact has to do with individuals. So I don't have statistics or even concepts. What Anna suggested in terms of the effect of any sort of creative study on the brain and on the community, that's something I don't have on that research.
so some keywords are like neuroscience, creativity. So I would encourage you to, and I, I would encourage, there's ways to do this, but I would encourage you, like, through this pilot program, to maybe considering conducting or publishing some research while you're doing it, that then can help you to, because essentially if you're approaching this from like the scientific method, you're basically stating, hey, there's this hypothesis floating around that creative people.
I see that only as being part of it. Because quite honestly, this isn't, I can give you the proof, and that's going to be in the research, and that research is absolutely necessary. But this is about impacting mental health. From my perspective, you're talking about mental health impact, and you're talking about like, oh gosh, what is the word? But basically, we're wanting people to use their brains and think through and find problems. People are doing it. I'm doing it with music, like opening the door to getting things wrong and for that to be okay. These are all of the explorations that we're doing. So from my perspective, I know that you're saying I have to like quantify it, right?
Well, I think
But if
that,
you're talking about the language I would use persuasive language. That is my.
well, I think that there's,
Persuasive language backed by facts.
So I think that you have done a great job of describing the qualitative impact, right? But I think the quantitative, the metrics are, they help to validate and to reinforce the qualitative description, because everyone's got an opinion.
Same thing.
Right,
Okay.
everybody's got an opinion, right? Persuasion becomes, like, from a storytelling perspective, there's an art and science of telling stories, right? I can tell you all day about the accident that I saw down the street, right? But if the facts are the facts, you know, like an insurance policy, they're typically gonna ask the 4 or 5 people, what did they see in order to get a comprehensive view of what actually occurred, right? And so my point is that if you have the qualitative language that helps to describe your programs, its impact, you can, for example, pull quotes from the people that you, hey, before I started doing this program in January 2024, I was depressed. I wasn't happy, blah, 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 right? But I did 12 trainings with Wendy, and all of a sudden I'm going to class more often, et cetera, right? That's some of that persuasive language. And then if you have data in the form of surveys, in the form of hours, in the form of, right, that then helps you to have a more, a better package, in my opinion, so that after you then move past this pilot phase of your program, right, you then have a little bit more skin, and that's also part of the research, right, which is we applied to 20 grants last year and we received X number, which validated like our proof of concept, and now we're seeking more money for next iteration of the next phase of this program, right? But it's really important, in my opinion, for you to be as married to the beginning of the story, to the middle of the story, as well as like living and dying by
I want to be
the
a good,
impact.
I want to be a good example for you so that you can build something. But I'm simply not as ambitious yet.
Sure.
So you're trying to expand me a little too far.
I'm so
Right
sorry.
now, I've got 1 year I want to do it.
Yeah.
And somewhere like 6 months down the road, I'll know probably how I want to approach year 2.
Yeah, I think that we have this little remake. We should just start, like, that's what.
I just see a need there and I want to help.
Again. And then this little thing happens, and then maybe some zig and zag, and you don't, I believe it might not be like the end product. It's like, you know.
I just can't live in year 2 space. That's not the way I'm doing this right now. I have a light that I'm holding and I can see about that part. That's what I have. So I need grants that will support me walking like that for 6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months.
And then I'm going to have a clear idea about what year 2 is.
So how much money do you think that you need for this to do the 6 to 8
I
months?
haven't done any of that. When I landed here, it was just, I thought we were gonna do more of what we did last time.
No, well, to be today.
I wasn't ready to be a subject.
No, not at all, not at all. We can move on to, I mean, the real hope is, I didn't see anything on the PAC grant. Has it been released yet?
Oh, yeah.
It has?
I think it is.
I was on the website like a bunch.
Oh, the
of-
website is terrible.
Okay,
It should be on, no, I have to find out if it's on, it should be on our Instagram,
okay.
but, yeah. Yeah, I'm worried about that, you know, and there's so many, like, the theater, you know, we always support them, but I'm worried about you guys getting the information, right, I mean, because last time, here, his application. And if you look at 10 applications, you know, and it was like, oh my God, you know, it needs to be, hopefully, you have any influence on that. Oh, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm just so worried about that.
I could invent it. That's
What I want to do is, if we get like 15 really good applications, I want to go to the teacher and say, okay, someone, and we'll be granted, so you guys don't have to enter, and we're gonna use little $1,000 grants, you know, it's gonna cause you a headache. You know, so that's my biggest scare right now, is that I have too many people that are really worth funding, like Rich, like the theater,
It's,
like you. know.
it's a lot of pressure, and that's why like I don't envy the people that have to review the grant applications. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy, you know, and so you've got like a lot of people that are really excited, that got a lot of great ideas and don't wanna hurt anyone's feelings, but ultimately you have to be sort of agnostic to the philosophy
That's what you're talking about being, that's for the grant. Right.
Makers, right?
Makers, yeah. Oh my God. This much money.
Yeah, it's not very much. And then what do we do about those people that have always gotten in the past, we were fine. And now all of a sudden, we get a lot of people applying.
I know Gretchen is thinking she would
So
get
but maybe she won't.
but maybe she won't.
That's scary. To me, she probably needs like this point.
So she's got, I think there are some. And that's just goes over, don't get on time. And she's not moving.
What's the price? And what's the discount? Or are you getting the whole thing? What's the is all about that. I hope that people are better about.
I mean, it's really not. I got specific with Mike's grant because I was thinking sponsorship. I got specific about it. I think I would do the same thing. I mean, I know.
Oh,
I know that. I mean, it's a funny thing to say, like, how can you support yourself and grow something beautiful, it makes a difference.
Woo! I know. And
Because I want to do all of this.
It's under our tiny door.
Okay.
It's I'm good at it, but it's comes out.
Yeah, that's the agency. I'm gonna start amplifying, and that's the whole thing, is just letting people know, I mean. You know,
You'll find this like amazing thing to do now.
so.
That want a pilot that can.
Yeah.
And but you
I've had people.
Totally.
I've had people. Candy. Here else, yeah, we have those. They're gonna bring your child in one time. A month. There's just really, not enough.
Needs.
But that's the thing.
So. I know what's possible.
I was there.
Considered like any government or like state program.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was one job.
Well, what's the, that's what.
You think we have to grow it, it will hurt when you go, now it's time to grow more. I'm experiencing pain now, change.
How did you guys' conversation go? Yeah, can we hear about it? And we'll talk about. our experience as well. Come on, talk to us.
Well, I'll do it.
You want to talk about it? Sharon?
Yeah. Well,
It's getting dark, it's time for bed.
Yeah, I mean, I came here now and not January because, you know, I couldn't be better. But it's straight roads, really home.
All right.
You can follow me, I'm driving the beast,
well, we kind of continued this conversation. We're actually included our musical education component. We talked about students that could go across all of the different communities. And music was one, the curbside.
Even having a conversation with other people could have helped me understand the shapes. That's what it's like, yeah.
Well, I think also it's like, because I get you on sometimes being overwhelmed and not having.
So wait a minute, we're recording.
Oh,
So curbside, so it's getting the material and being able to pay her whatever. Also having her looking at the categories and coming up with what the curbside art kit would be, that would be specific to the demographic or to the population. And then with the music, that's another thread that could go across. I mean, what do they listen to? We also, it came up that she was saying that the Patriotic Hall is a place where they all come for swimming and other things, and so that's a natural venue, but we do want to have curbside in there.
Our wondering is like, how do I contact anyone who's not part of the crew who's going over there, and that's all. Post-school.
Well, we're
I'm
gonna
looking at, yeah, so the difference of demographics and how to reach the different people, that's what I've been doing this past year. And, you know, and sort of when I gave up on trying to get them to come to workshops, because they weren't home. But what I did is I made a lot of connections with people who, like, I know will then, like, when we do have something, like, basically asking people, like, how are your people engaging? It is getting to know people. So I met with Shannon Shea at the high school. She runs all of the programs, so all the clubs and everything goes through her. And they've been, I guess her family's been part of the community in the school forever. She went there and what have you. So, it's, you know, the people who have lived here for their whole lives. Know where people congregate and what people do. And literally, like, Lucky Park is the place that is like a family place. And that's how you're connecting with the, you know, the elementary school. And I have the principal of the elementary school, contact, I can give you her contact, and tell you how to get flyers into the high school also, and in the junior high.
They just told me I could, if I were a nonprofit, I could put the flyers in if it's for profit. You can't get it into the school.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is why we're getting.
And I totally get it. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
that, you know, I don't even know if we got scholarships and that capability still are, we're not for nonprofits.
Yeah, well, that's where maybe a collaboration could come in, you know, like the idea of, like, you know, how to grow the arts in our community and like how to connect all of our parts together. Like really getting the two sides closer is something that I think is possible. But working, I think, my perspective, where I'm at and what I want to do is just get in on that side of this. And so having that after school program just makes me so happy as a bus. The take the high schoolers down.
Well, one of the big things is getting Kate to get her ideas and dreams and vision and with a timeline so that it can be presented, and she's so resistant. She's so resistant.
She's resistant. I'm being resistant.
Coming down yet.
But she's like 6 months maybe, you know what I mean?
That's even know if I could do
Well,
it.
no, but that's already happening. So, I mean, it's like, no,
You're like, oh, I gotta figure this out.
well, but the objective is to do it before, well, to do it before the PAC meeting, so that you get their buy-in, you get their understanding of the scope and the vision of the program, and then working back from the June 4th to 5th deadline and whatever other milestones need to happen to ensure. We talked a bit about why she's doing this grant and the toss-up between the youth development grant, and she's thinking maybe only to do one, and she understands now that they have to be a different project that you're going to try to do both. So anyway, that's kind of, did I cover most of the stuff? Oh, we actually involved the one that wants to get paid.
You know what I'm talking about.
But anyway, no, it was good because she gave us some ideas about having different groups, and she's feeling, I mean, this time there's more of acceptance of people, this whole ability to coexist and to create environments and projects and spaces where people coexist and learn something other than the stereotypes or the phobias that are associated with historical aspects of their, you know, being in the same space. So we're looking at, and we said we're gonna stay out of politics, we're gonna stay out of a number of things, even though we know they
I
need,
still
but this
put
is
my
art.
politics in, he's like, keep it out.
This is
Fine.
art. We have to be pure.
Well, it's just, you know,
in our
it's about
intention.
leadership and
And
like
the
accepting,
leadership.
accepting like the different communities in different ways. And like building that into the way leadership is done within the programming. Like, to me,
Right.
that's important.
As opposed to promoting leadership per se, let it kind of be a natural process around the arts and finding out what people's passions are.
Well, that's why I love collectives, collaborations, and coalitions, you know, and you come together and there's a little bit of formality without the paperwork. And then you can dissolve, or then you can keep it going and form something, you know what I mean? But the idea is that you develop trust and safety based off of your own ability, and then as you have more collaborators, you can start knowing like, hey, I can count on this person for writing, this person for program development, leadership, et cetera, et cetera. On that note, putting Wendy on the spot again, because she was for sure like in the boiler room unintentionally.
And they were like, where are your facts and figures? How are you gonna justify it? Give me quantities and qualities. And he was actually for all those details, I was like, I just thought we just coming to like have an extension of what we did last time.
Just a little bit hotter, you know, like I think we wanted this to be less of a lecturing and more of a working session.
Yeah, it makes sense, but I wanted to have more conversations, because I felt like the form of it has to come about from other people. I mean, I can run my own little music teaching studio, but if we're actually talking about something that serves a greater community, it can't just involve me. That's what I
So,
felt.
and that's good, and I actually agree with you on that, a ton, and so that maybe provides some context to our conversation a bit. And,
I need to have conversations, and I actually know somebody who's teaching with groundwork arts who'd be amazing for the rhythm. You know,
Yeah, he's my neighbor.
he's just so good, this guy, I love him. I was a photographer, and a couple of
He's
his
got the
guys.
greatest smile, and he's like just so.
Well, he's
like,
just so relaxed,
and,
and rhythm is actually, if you're talking about music, rhythm is.
Oh, it has, he doesn't go about. Yeah.
But, and also, just because, like, we wanna make money, that doesn't mean that this idea that you have is not a nonprofit. You can be a nonprofit.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that, that's a Gretchen needs it to be a nonprofit,
I think
so that
she
she can
does
get paid.
I think she would benefit from talking with people one-on-one and not just being part of the group.
I took a seminar on starting a church for some unknown reason, obviously, I love seminars and not, so. But third of it was about how to discriminate against homosexuals through bylaws. A third of it was about paying the clergy. And a third of it was about side businesses. So you can own a nonprofit and make money.
See, I just imagine throwing the biggest party and everybody looks and goes, ooh, that looks like fun. That's what I imagine us doing. We're just creating the first party, you know?
Yeah.
So that everybody wants to start, I just wanna create.
That's the right
momentum.
idea.
Yeah, and I feel really strongly about starting small and letting it grow from itself, you know?
Because if I put my own ideas onto it, I'm just asking people to come into this little room. I just feel like,
I don't want that at all.
I just feel like kind of like people have greater ideas than me.
Yeah.
So like, that's
Yeah,
why
yeah.
I start my lessons that way. I ask the kids like, what do you want to listen to? Let's listen to it. And we pull it up and listen. What do you hear? Oh, what's that? And then we just start and we create stories about the music. I don't know, it's fun. That's an exploration.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a natural.
Because when people have fun, they remember that.
And when it's personal, it's
Yeah.
something they choose.
Yeah, and that's like the core of what we want to do with the drop-in art, is that it's not about, you learn to make it's just like come in and have a space that's like safe where you can make things and the room is set up to do that,
And there's a trend in education that is like that. Because I got a friend, she got a friend a couple years ago. She just provided the space, they got the teams together, started listening. Yeah, oh, that's, they want to do. Okay, let's have this next week. And then, oh no, there's another group, a subject is doing robotics.
I know, you just get ready to do it, right?
As opposed to education, which is, what's your agenda, what's your syllabus?
That was the hardest
first, and then you get.
That was the hardest part of working with groundwork arts. They were trying to give us containers as teachers so that we wouldn't have to do as much preparation work. But going in as not having done it before, I didn't have a lot of experience. a week or whatever. It felt like they just gave me parameters, like, here, teach it within this little thing.
Yeah.
And that was hard,
It's
because I was
different, it's a different way of education, but you're not interested in that, you have a different vision. I think it's great, it's
Yeah.
exciting, and I think it is, something that. It's
Yeah.
And if you label it learning, it's not educating, it's their learning. We're all learning. We're learning what to learn, we're learning how to learn, we're picking what we learn, not personalized. So substituting education with a learning lab.
What's called, you create your own major. That's happening, have you seen that in,
It's a thing in colleges and universities.
and I think they're talking about, I've been hearing about some of that in high school and junior high and stuff. So like, it's the balance of helping them with the fundamentals, but then personalizing general education based off of where their interests are. And that's the agility that you described, and like testing for X, Y, and Z, but the student having a voice in what they're learning, how they're learning, where they're learning, et cetera, et
Yes,
cetera.
we're in a Montessori charter school, it's like the first one in Redlands. And that's what they did, they said, we're just holding space so they can fail safely.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Exploration, experiential. Is what
They run their little businesses, they do different projects, but it was always within the safe container.
And it sounds like that's how you want to apply your grant strategy as well, in some ways.
So environmental, I mean, this environment is safe to coexist and to do the thing, but you have to do what you want to do to some
I have one little girl who doesn't want to listen to me, she just wants to compose the whole thing. So
extent.
that's what I'm doing, I'm listening to her. And every so often she lets me say something, but otherwise she's like, no.
So therapeutic, huh?
I don't know.
Letting go,
This is
let-
her time. Yeah.
That's how it, that's how it.
which is
She's
an
so
idea.
creative, yeah, but she's very, like, strong willed. I don't need to break it.
No.
Anyway, that's the fun part, so I would.
Okay.
I do music. Before something.
I'm just learning enough to stay ahead of them, right?
That's all you need to do. And didgeridoo.
So let's go ahead and break, we're about 10 minutes over.
Yeah, okay.
But, we are gonna be following up via email with action items, continued support, and then communicating the working group, right? Where again, the idea is that we'll just be offering Black Cactus, maybe once a month for grant writing, application, support, working together, getting that on the calendar and just providing some consistency. You can fail safely here, right? And that's all.
There, that's great.
Totally, well, I mean,
So if we were doing this, we might come a little more prepared next month, so like our homework, should we choose to accept it?
exactly.
A challenge, should we choose to accept it is,
Strategy.
That's
Come up
right,
with
you're
your
easy
grant
about
writing,
it.
your funding and grant writing. strategy,
so it's the
business,
first part, which is assess yourself. So I know my story, right?
And understand what you want to do. Be able to-
And then have a concept of what I need.
Program services, right? So it's like,
Because one, you can search online for grants, but going to the foundation center, we have one in LA. If I know distinctly what your missions and objectives, I can go do that search and just put it in. Because what I do is I go there, I search, and then I put it into like Black Cactus ERP system. So we can create projects. So we can do further grant writing, because a lot of these, the free accounts give you some, like Grant Station, I just found it wasn't useful to me for what I wanted to do. So it's all about, because I really say, if each of us could come up with 5 different grants that were suited for, it increases our potential for actually getting one or more of them. That's just the, you need to do that. That's just, is this part of,
Just cast your bread on the wall.
yeah, and you're going through the process of collecting all the information, and then it's just being able to read and understand what they want, and then qualify and go for it. And then the collective, I'm really interested in the art collective, because I get goosebumps thinking about it, because it's just so powerful. In the day of technology, the arts and innovation will make it all happen. That's, you know, that and necessity.
I feel like the kids just don't know how to live with that.
Oh, yeah. Hip hop, value. Yeah.
Like,
And I think that gets into the meat and potatoes of the value proposition that you provide is like, I think the safe space, going back to like impact, right, is we help people understand how valuable they are.
we help people fail safe. Well, we give them. space.
But that helps you to recognize, you know, like your ability to navigate resiliency and failure and creativity never ends, right? Like just because you fail one time doesn't mean that it stops. You can figure out a new way to solve the problem again.
You know, most people waste their lives playing it safe. That's what I would say, right?
And it's health implications.
So then learning how to take risks is actually what we want.
Right.
Well,
You know,
we're people. What makes us extraordinary is that we're problem solvers. We can't, you know, we're born, we can't breathe, so we cry, and that's unpleasant, so we figure out how to do it better. And we continue that way.
Poetic and beautiful.
I need a sticker.
Very proud of you.
I thought stickers, I want.
Right? You know? Which is like.
So now, Taryn, will you be able to create a mailing list for us?
Oh, well, we should have done a sign up sheet, which maybe we can do a quick one now, and then I can, send you all an email with the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like everybody's email already. He typically has all the homework and the checklists and stuff, so he's probably, you're gonna be the one that, I wanted you to send out these. So just write down your name, you know.
It's like work and such. That was like this weekend.
Did you enjoy this? Because I'd love to get some journalism type stuff happening.
Yeah, personally.
With this project, it's arts, journalism, because you're a journalist, right? Would you say?
Yeah, I'm from the.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the whole area of being able to express yourself and going to events and creating a photograph and a story, right? That whole part, because we need to be able to pass on our talents and our passions for different things and come up with ways to kind of develop some economic.
I thought she did a good job, because we beat both of these two up, and I think it makes sense.
Figure out where I should start.
Good.
I don't.
Right?
know.
Really? Perfect.
Yes, you're. Oh, yeah, but.
I mean, it's like, gotta be a-
Well, I mean, gives up math. And I went up to see
Very long time.
Sorry.
Yeah.
When you step up in the boat.
Okay, so it's like you try, but like,
Right.
it's a big like. Welding, right? It's like welding. What's going on? Right, I was like, but then I looked at it, I was like, and I really,
So that when I welded the first time I used arc welding,
Okay.
and it's like steel, and I was just like.
I remember like, and the artists that work with like the industrial.
Yeah. I finally got a little.
Was it like more out of necessity?
No, I don't. I know.
General. They're observant, right about it. Fraud, it's not there.
Somehow I did the exercise, you know, that's like cheeseburgers.
Really, the journey, you know, that helps kids in your class. Older people to be involved in lives. And, you know, the whole AI thing is a little overrated, but provide a stimulus of feedback on what you guys. So that, you know, so the vulnerability. So any of your ideas and your kind of thing.
Started this year, I have a professional hat.
I'm really interested in kind of framing it. The whole time. That's why we had to. But it's a much smaller group. That was my first.
What's up?
Karen.
Uh-huh.